It would seem as though.
Hi.
Hi.
We're here.
Oh, we are here. We are sure here.
Physically. We're physically
We are physically here. I was trying to think of a word earlier today, and it just... compromised was the word. Because my children's information has been compromised.
Okay.
Because there was a leak of an attack, an assault on the security system of where their insurance is. And all the information was stolen. But I couldn't think of the word compromise. Their information had been compromised.
Okay.
Because, well, I'm old, and words fall out of my head
just
sometimes.
right out.
Yeah, but then it came back. I mean, I found it. It was on the floor under my shoe. And I put it back in my head.
And then you're like, that's that word.
Good morning, I'm Vesta.
I'm Annika. That was backwards.
I know.
Usually you say, welcome to See Me Though.
So welcome back to another episode of It Would Seem As Though, the podcast where we talk about anything, everything, and nothing.
Mostly. Nothing.
Today's really nothing. I mean, we didn't prepare. We did nothing. We just got together and we're like, what are we talking about?
Listen.
We're talking about all the things.
This has been a long week, it feels. I feel like since Vivica was here on Tuesday, a lot has happened since then, and I'm tired, girl.
Yeah.
I couldn't think of anything else. Well,
a lot has happened.
Yeah. One, that stupid job I didn't get because it was stupid.
Boo!
I know. Well, and the worst part was, and you already know this, but for our grand audience, like I interviewed for 3 hours over the course of 2 days, right? And then they said they'd call me at a certain time, and they didn't. So I reached out twice. Like I called and said, hi, thank you so much, blah, blah, blah. And then that didn't get a response too, so then I sent an email and said the same thing. And so they responded to me yesterday and said, oh, unfortunately, we went with someone else. And I said, well, that's stupid. But the day they didn't call me, I was upset. And mostly because I felt like it was like disrespectful to me. You know what I mean? I felt like it was a slap in my face. And it made me feel like silly and whatever. But that's just because that's who I am. It was finals week on top of that, so I just finished classes for a week. Well, and then Annabelle Lee, my dog, my old dog, who's about to be 13 in 1 month, she developed like edema, so swelling on her back leg, and I took her to the vet, and so she has a tumor, and she has to like take steroids for now, but there's no way to take it out unless we amputate her whole leg. So, and again, she's old, so I'm not gonna remove her leg.
So there will be no amputation.
No, and I was talking to Gavin, and I said, if she was younger and can learn to live without her leg, and it wasn't like a hindrance, fine. But she's almost 13, you know?
Right.
There's no way.
No.
But then again, you made a good point. How much would that cost? How many thousands of dollars would it cost to amputate a leg?
And then she would need one of those little doggy wheelchairs. Because you're right, she would not... I see dogs all the time with 3 legs.
Yeah.
But who obviously either lost the limb very young.
Yeah.
Or, maybe were born without it. Probably lost it.
Yeah.
Because I've seen dogs where there was something seriously wrong. Mm-hmm. Or, deformities from birth or whatever.
Happen,
And they removed the leg and the dog's just fine without it. But... from when they were babies.
Early, yeah. But I can't do it. There's no way. So, yeah, and this morning...
Besides, she's shaped like a footstool.
She'll fall over. She sure will. Little Muppet Belle. I know. Yeah, and then this morning, because we went to the vet yesterday, she didn't want to, eat, and she didn't want to take her pills, and I'm like, it's like dealing with your mother.
Oh,
she doesn't want to eat. She doesn't want to take her pills.
Yeah, that's another whole story, that one.
Yeah.
I was telling you right before we started here, I have a new obsession.
Oh, right.
Greenland.
I love that.
Mm-hmm. I'm learning about it. I don't know much about it other than I learned a long time ago that Iceland is green and Greenland is covered in ice.
I think they teach you that in school. It's like a mnemonic device kind of.
Yeah. So what was interesting, I've learned so many interesting things. And it all started with a video where some man had posted this thing. It's like, where are the reservations in Greenland? For all those indigenous folk.
Oh, damn natives.
And the woman who I've been following, who makes all these posts, is like, there are no reservations because 83% of the population is indigenous.
Ugh, snaps.
Yeah. I mean, they brought in a few white people, but most of it is indigenous
just to be
people.
like diversity.
Right. Then they can be a diversity hire. Mm-hmm. But it's mostly indigenous folk who speak Greenlandic first, And then they speak Danish, because Greenland is part of
Wow.
Denmark. And then they speak English.
Oh.
So everyone speaks Greenlandic.
Yeah.
And then second language Danish, third language English.
It's crazy to me that they just have like that many languages. I know here, there's different people who speak different languages, but people think of the common languages being
Right.
English, right? So to have like 3 languages that are probably commonly spoken is really interesting.
Yeah. Well, and most kids learn Greenlandic at home. That's what their parents speak to them. But they do learn English in school so that they can, if they travel other places, be well versed. I thought that was really cool. But there are no roads from city to city.
Oh.
So if you want to leave Nuuk, which is the capital of Greenland, you have to fly wherever you're going.
Wow.
You fly by airplane or helicopter.
Interesting. Okay.
Or you take a boat.
No.
No, I'm sorry, a boat in that icy water?
Is it because they all live on like the coast, right? Because the inland is
all ice.
Permafrost. Yeah. That makes sense. Okay.
But there's no roads from city to city, which I found really interesting. Not even anything, around the outside.
Weird.
So I thought that was interesting.
So I bet their pollution is like itty bitty.
Yeah.
I mean, other than all the planes flying, but whatever. But how often does that happen?
Well, I don't know.
That's interesting.
Because it's also very expensive to travel.
Yeah,
because there's hardly any airlines that fly there because there's not enough demand. So, like, to fly from Greenland to Norway is like $1,300 American dollars.
Wow.
And it's a fairly short flight because it's right there. But I didn't know, because geographically I'm quite challenged, and I've mentioned this before. But I always thought Greenland was like, I don't know where I thought it was, but it's really just right next to Canada.
Yeah.
Up, up in the top, up in the north.
In the Atlantic.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it's just a little hop, skip, and a jump over to Norway. But I thought that was also interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I've just been watching all these kinds of things. And the crime rate there is very low, which I love that.
Yeah.
But where are you going to go?
Yeah.
It's not like you can steal something where you can't run.
Yeah, right? I'm going into the tundra.
And now I started watching videos about, what was the name of that city?
Svalbard.
And that is in Sweden?
Sweden, I think it's Norway, but I think it's the most tippity top of Norway.
It is the most tippity top of the world. You're up there at the
Arctic Circle.
Yeah. And it's where they have 3 months of dark. Mm-hmm. I would hate that.
But they also then have like 3 months of light.
3 months of summer.
Which sounds horrible to me.
Both sound awful to me. Like, it'd be disconcerting. Like, you would get so discombobulated that you're like, I don't know what's what. And maybe you'd get used to it, I imagine. Because that woman who does those videos.
And she's not from there originally. She's from Scandinavia.
Okay. But she was saying she loves it. She loves the dark because it feels cozy.
That's me, girl.
But dark all the time. Like, you go to work in the dark, you come home in the dark. It's always dark.
Well, let me tell you something. In the winter, when Gavin was working 12-hour days, would go to school, go to work when it was dark, come home when it was dark. But I've always worked when it was dark. Working at Starbucks, I've always worked before the sun.
But you would come home in the light.
Yeah, but I didn't enjoy it. It's weird, working at Starbucks when it was dark outside. I prefer when it was light. Because light means, here's my issue. Here's where my seasonal depression comes in, is spring and summer. Because I equate the sunshine with people, because when the sun's out, more people are out. And I don't want to go do things then, because people are out, and who likes people? Not me. That's why during the spring and summer, I feel more depressed. I feel more like I don't want to do things. But fall, winter, I'm all about it. I feel more energetic. I feel like it's cozy. I feel like it's comfortable. And so I feel like that's how I would think of the 3 months of, no sun. But 3 months of constant sun...
No,
because, and I mean, I can sleep through pretty much anything. I have sleep mask, girl. I'll just put that right on my ass every night.
Yeah.
But the sun to me is just not, look at me, bitch.
I know. You're the
sun
color of
hates
Elmer's
me,
blue.
Okay? So, I think I would like the dark.
So when I think that it was, and you're going to have to say the name of the city again.
Svalbard.
I believe it was there that I watched the video where you're not allowed to give birth there.
Oh.
Or die there. And now, I'm going to look real quick because I know
how does one control that?
I was wondering that exact same thing because I do not know.
No. And death you can't control, but also pregnancy. You know you're pregnant, you know it's coming, but like you don't know when can you just not be on there the whole in your third trimester?
It is, I can't even say it. It's long. Let me see if I can get her to say it again.
Say it again. What is it?
Long bien.
Svalbard, yeah.
It's blah 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 and blah blah blah. Yeah, well, you know, she is not. It's all those vowels.
Yeah.
There's like 72 vowels in a word, and I'm all long, and then consonants all back to back. Where you're like, how does that even work?
How does one
how
say
do you say that?
Yeah.
Anyway, but one of the things I thought that was so you can't die there. You can't be born there. And you can't die there because bodies don't decompose.
Holy shit!
Because of the permafrost.
So what happens if you happen to die there?
I think that I imagine people do die there, but you can't. You're not buried there.
Buried. Yeah.
You don't have any of the. Yeah.
They just throw you into the ocean.
But what I thought was even more interesting is they have a doomsday vault there.
Oh yeah.
Did you read?
It has
hear
seeds
about that?
in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It has seeds for like all these kind of plants from all over the world in case the world needs a reset.
Yeah.
They've got all the seeds.
So it's like one of the like most secure buildings because of what it's made of and how it locks.
Yeah.
It's guarded because of that, because it's all seeds from all over, all like known seeds or something like that.
Yeah.
From the world to help regrow vegetation and all of that, which is fucking fascinating to me.
Yeah.
When I learned about that, I'm like,
when I saw that, I was like, what?
That's some like sci-fi shit, and I love that.
Yeah, and it's this whole huge thing. It's when she said a vault, and then she showed it. I'm like, oh my god,
yeah,
this is
huge.
Some stuff.
It's so cool,
and I'd never heard of that before.
I love it.
Yeah.
I know. I love the idea of having a doomsday vault. Like, what are you keeping? Like, that's so. What else are you keeping though?
Right. What else are you keeping in there?
They're all weapons of mass destruction and plants.
Here are all the plants to reseed the earth.
Yeah.
And here are the guns to make sure that you leave them alone.
Yeah. Yes.
If you go try to dig up those plants, we will kill you.
Yeah. Dead. Kill you. Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I know.
I also found it interesting that in Greenland, because it is very cold, that they still can garden.
Okay.
Yeah, and because this one woman, who the one I'm following, she showed her garden, and so once she tends her garden, she then covers them all up completely to keep them warm.
Okay, with like plastic or something.
Yeah.
Like a greenhouse.
Yeah,
in Greenland. How
Greenland
crazy.
Greenhouse.
Crazy.
I know. So it's very interesting. So that was kind of my obsession for this week because I find it just fascinating. Because, other cultures. What?
Weird.
And she said the most common way that Greenland is visited is by a cruise ship.
Oh, makes sense.
Because
okay.
the population of the entire country of Greenland is 53,000.
Oh, okay.
And so when cruise ships come in...
The population
increases, but I think she said by like 18% or something.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And, but that's the most common way it's visited. Because the cruise ship comes into port, the people come in to visit the towns and whatever, and then of course they all go away again the next day or that day or whatever it is. Right? Can you imagine? Here's your influx of people.
And they're gone.
Yeah.
Cool. I love that.
Greenland's one of the crimes that doesn't exist is Grand Theft Auto.
Oh, stealing?
Because you're on an island. Where are you going to go?
Yeah.
You're in a town with no roads to other towns. Where are you going to go?
Yeah, right. Why would you? Do people have cars? Oh, to drive
people
around.
People do have cars.
Drive around the town.
Because the cities are actually fairly large.
Okay.
Yeah. It's just crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I love that. So now I want to learn more about it. I would love to go there, but like she said, it's very expensive to go there.
Yeah.
So, but if you go on the cruise there, it's less expensive than if you fly there.
Copy. Okay.
So
cruises
and
are
plus the thing is, cruises are, and now of course with all the shit that we're aware of that happens on cruises, I'm like, I don't think I ever.
Yeah, and don't like half of them get like super sick and then quarantined in the middle of the ocean, or was that
like other things that we're going to talk about later? The percentage of that is actually very tiny, but it's what we hear about.
Yeah, well,
it's the news that it's sensationalized. It's the news that makes the news. This cruise ship, took on water and drowned. This cruise ship, the toilets all exploded and backed up, and people died from whatever.
Yeah,
those
dysentery.
Or the refrigeration system went out and people had nothing to eat. Those are so rare So, but those are the ones that make the news.
Yeah. Well, and that ties perfectly into our
But
topic.
it can happen.
Right, but it ties perfectly into our topic of sensationalizing the news when we're talking about... Because our topic is talking about what people get wrong about trans people.
Yeah.
And so a lot of that has to do with the news and the media and what they're saying, and a lot of times it's not true.
It's not accurate.
Well,
and instead of using real, like percentages, they'll often use numbers. So, like, in 2023, and I'm going to make up a number, 300 trans people decided to detransition. Mm-hmm. And in case you don't know what that means, it just means to go back to their gender they were assigned at birth. Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, that number is actually not real. But instead of the percentage, which is less than 1% of trans people. Mm-hmm. So if there's 100 trans people in Portland, and there's more than that, but if there was 100 trans people here, one of them might decide to detransition.
And I want to put that into perspective, because the trans population of the United States is like 0.5 or 0.6 of 1%. So there's 300 million people or something, 300 something million people in the U.S., and 1%, and half of that 1% are trans people. So then you're telling me 1% of that 0.5% are people who detransition.
All right, no, so this has just become complicated math.
Yeah. Well,
because 1%...
So if this is if 100%
of 300 million,
right, and then you take, I don't know what that number is, but think about it. If it's half of 1%, and then you take 1% of that 0.5%, that's literally nothing.
I'm going to ask my phone, because maybe she'll know.
Ask your phone.
What is 1% of 300 million?
She doesn't know. 3
million.
3 million.
So 3 million.
So that's 1% though, but that's 1%.
So half of that. So 150 million, right? No.
1,500,000.
1,500,000.
Yeah. Oh. Okay. So then 1%. 1% of that is what?
I don't know.
1,000, 1,500. Math, girl. I don't know. I don't know what it is.
Right. But that puts it into perspective. And the other thing is, most people who do detransition never really transitioned to begin with.
No.
They took either hormone blockers or they took hormones, but they didn't have surgery that they had to have reversed because, well, you can't.
No.
I mean, if you had your breasts removed, yes, you could have
breast implants.
Breast implants,
sure.
But the other things are not so much. You know. Or if you had breast implants, you could always have them taken out. Mm-hmm. But that's one of the things that the people on the right who are trying to get all these laws passed against trans people, that's one of the things they get wrong.
Yeah.
And because nobody does any kind of research, they just go, oh, well, they said all these children are being mutilated and are transitioning and whatever, and now they don't want to be that anymore. Because a few people came out publicly saying, well, I was trans, and I was miserable, and I felt like I had to be, because, what?
Well, and here's
someone's
the thing.
making you be trans.
But that is part of the narrative for people who detransition. But there are also people who detransition who are still very pro-trans rights, right? Because I was watching videos of people who had detransitioned because that was the talking point that conservatives were using. And I don't remember what state it was in, but people who detransitioned who came in and said, I felt like I had to detransition, or my safety was at risk, or whatever it was, right?
Yes.
But so that is part of the narrative. But I think detransitioning, this is my personal opinion, and if you've detransitioned, I know you, it's fine. But it used to drive me fucking crazy. It used to make me feel like you're just giving trans people a bad name. You're making it seem like a phase. You know what I mean?
Right.
You're making
it seem whim.
Like it was something fun you did and then it didn't work out for you. And you weren't, you weren't...
bangs or changing your hair color.
Exactly, like bangs. So part of me still feels that way. I do understand people do what they do. And I genuinely don't care. Do what you do.
Right.
Don't be a hateful cunt. Other than that, I don't give a fuck, right? Do whatever you want. But when people try to use that talking point to be against, the trans and non-binary community, there's, no effort put in. And second of all, it's just inaccurate.
Right.
And that's frustrating.
Yeah, the problem is you're taking this little seed and trying to blow it up into a whole plant.
Yeah.
It isn't there.
No.
You know, but because you're too lazy to do your own research,
Right.
all you're doing is going, well, but I heard.
Well, and like, so another issue people are talking about is, or mostly conservatives, is how trans people are grooming children, right? And they're predators to children. And I'm like, no. And people, you can't find it.
Yeah.
Show me.
Find that.
Uh-huh. Show me.
Because there's 0.
Yeah. But
That
then,
number is 0.
okay, how about you go look at how many trans people have groomed children, and I'll go look at how many politicians and church officials have done the same thing.
Uh-huh.
And then let's reconvene.
One of us is going to come up with a real number.
Yeah, and it will be astro-fucking-nomical.
One, and the number for the politicians and church people is going to be still not an accurate reflection because so much of it doesn't even get reported.
I mean, so an example of that is Jeffrey Epstein. How long did his chicanery go on for where he was being a weirdo and doing creepy things? You know, the whole trial.
Selling children to rich people?
Mm-hmm. And like the whole sex slavery thing, that went on for how long? Decades.
Yeah, decades.
And then it got found out. So, yeah,
Right, and all the people who would have come down with him when he went down didn't, because he was killed in prison.
Mm-hmm.
Not killed himself. No one believes that.
Mm-mm.
You know, but here's the other thing is Ghislaine Maxwell, who was his
trash human.
Yeah, who was his
like right hand
whatever. Yeah,
bestie.
worked with him. I was again words.
Yeah.
She somehow made it to trial.
Yeah.
She was found guilty. She's in prison, but she didn't have all of the names. She refused to name names and whatever, and that's probably the only reason she's still alive.
Yeah.
I would have named names, so kill me. I don't want to live in prison the rest of my life.
Yeah, I would have. Oh my god, I would have been that whistleblower.
Yes, she's a garbage human being.
Ugh, yeah, absolutely. But yeah, that's not our topic. But you know what I mean.
That is not our topic, but you know, it is about people finding out actual facts, because there is no such thing as alternative facts.
No
matter what, you know, the Trump administration said.
Okay, but hold on, I'm going to say something else. So there's a thing like the subjective truth, which is what you believe, right? Ice cream is great. Sure. I also think ice cream is not great. That's your truth, that's my truth, right? But then there's the objective truth, like the sky is blue and the water is wet and, you know what I mean, the sun is hot. Like things that are just true that everyone knows to be true, right? So to her, or alternative facts are just what people believe and they're calling it fact. They think adding fact to it is going to bolster it into something that's real. But like it's just your belief, and your belief isn't true. Or we would be proving God exists. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We'd prove religion, which no one can prove any sort of God.
Although I do love those billboards. I see this. Here's proof that God is real, and it's a picture of a baby. How is that proof? Isn't that just,
I think
that just proof that babies are real?
I think that's proof that someone has sex.
I would say that's probably more accurate.
Yeah, right.
But it's like, no. Mm-mm. But these are the same billboards that they're like, life starts at conception.
No.
They have a heartbeat at like 9 days. No, they sure don't. You know, it's like, but whatever.
But that's also, that's not
also not our topic. But topics are, tangents are topics, and we're going all over the place. But the other thing, the other big talking point of the people on the right who are trying to ban everything, especially what they're trying to ban is health care for trans children. Mm-hmm. Is they keep saying, well, all of these children are being mutilated. No. These children are having all these surgeries. No.
Nope.
It is not legal. Mm-mm. It never has been.
No.
What is happening is, let's say, little Jimmy's coming to his mom at 5 years old and saying, Mom, I feel like a girl.
Sure.
The first step there is mom saying, hopefully saying, well, okay, let's explore that. What do you mean? And blah, 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 having conversations. And then if that child wants to then present as female, that's the family's choice to do that. No harm, no foul. This child is now presenting as a female.
That's it.
Years later, they may be prescribed hormone blockers, which will just block puberty.
And there's a misconception there. People think, oh my God, they take these medications and it changes their body. I want you to know all the medications that trans people use were made for non-trans people, right? So taking a puberty blocker was made for girls and boys who are going through puberty too early, which is a thing. People go through puberty early, but to slow it down. So puberty blockers are not a permanent thing.
No, because as soon as you go off of them, then you go through puberty.
Yeah. And it's just like it'll block testosterone or it'll block estrogen, and that is it. That is what it does.
That's all.
Yeah.
So I'm going to use the example of someone who I've watched their journey, which is Jazz Jennings. Trans woman, she's a grown-up woman now, from Florida, who her entire journey has all been documented
it was on like TLC.
Media. Yeah, and she has her own TV show called I Am Jazz, but she's also been very public about all of it from the time she was a little girl, because her journey started literally with her telling her mom, this isn't right.
Yeah.
I'm not a boy. I don't know why I'm dressed like a boy. We got to knock this crap off.
Yeah.
And so started dressing like a girl. At the age, whatever age it is that her doctor felt appropriate, they gave her hormone blockers. Just to block puberty, so that by the time she got old enough to make that decision, she could say, yeah, no, I'm really sure this is what I want. This is years of therapy.
Yep.
Years of seeing a doctor. This isn't like a whim.
No, you can't just walk into your like urgent care and be like, give my child some hormones. Like, that's not how it works.
No, right. And so then, after she was on those then she started taking estrogen. So, because she knew, her doctor knew, her psychiatrist knew, her family knew that she was indeed a girl.
Yeah.
And so they started actually giving her estrogen so that she would have the proper puberty.
Right.
That she would go through all the things she needed to go through.
Like she would develop breasts, things like that. She wouldn't grow body hair really.
Right.
Things like that.
Right.
Things that come along with estrogen.
And at the age of 18, she had gender-affirming surgery. Well, one of the other talking points that people are saying is, well, there are so many risks with surgery. There are so many times it goes wrong. There's risk with every single surgery that is known to man.
Yeah.
There is not a single surgery, no matter how minor or major, that doesn't have risks. So all of the things they're saying are not based in fact.
Yeah. And
but this particular one of mutilating children, it is not even legal.
Yeah.
So look it up.
Yeah.
Read a book. Read read an article that's actually written by one of the doctors who does trans health.
Right. Well, and people should know, even as an adult, to have any surgery as a trans person, you have to go talk to 2 separate therapists and get letters from 2 separate fucking therapists who can write that and say this person is of sound mind, essentially. Saying, this person isn't crazy, they can have surgery. As an adult, so, you can think and feel and do all that. You have autonomy. You're a grown-up. You can do what you want, and they're still making you jump through hoops.
Right.
And
there's also, you have to live and present as that gender before you can ever have surgery.
Yeah, they've changed. It's changed a lot, because it used to be you had to live and present before they prescribe you hormones.
Right.
And now basically you can walk in as an adult and say, I'm transgender, and pretty quickly you can get on some sort of medication, whether that's blocking estrogen or testosterone.
But as an adult.
As an adult. But yeah, it has changed, yes, but as a child, under 18, you don't have any say. And the most your parents can do is put you on blockers until you're an adult. That is it. Even with parental, they sign off on it. What is the word? Parental approval? I don't know. Consent. Thank you. They oftentimes they still can't be on hormones because their body is still developing.
Blockers.
Yeah, just blockers. So
there is no mutilation happening. No. And however, I will say that sometimes there is self-mutilation that happens with trans people because they get the body dysmorphia is so strong that they're like, I don't want to if it's male to female, they can't stand having a penis. So there have been cases where they have mutilated it so that they have to have surgery.
Yep.
Right? And to save it, to save the bits and pieces that they can, they will do surgery. But there are no doctors, at least not, accredited doctors who are doing this kind of surgery.
No. And you know what's crazy to me is people want to talk about it's like mutilating. What about all of these young girls who get nose jobs? or boob jobs. And
Right.
that's like a common thing. Living in
Oh,
Los
by the
Angeles.
way, a nose job you can't undo.
Yeah. Well, and like living in LA, this happened often. And like
Yeah.
richer kids, daddy bought me this for my 16th birthday. He bought you boobs. He bought you a nose.
He bought me
like,
boobs and a new nose.
right. That shit's crazy to me. And so you want to talk about that, but that's like socially acceptable because like they're trying to look, I don't know, they're trying to fall
Right.
into like the beauty standards, which are already so fucked up.
Which are so gross.
Yeah. So it just doesn't make any sense that people are all up in arms about this. But I don't think, that's the thing, is I don't think the majority of Americans are up in arms.
Well, and that's the other thing, is it looks, just by what you see in the news, like there's very little public support for trans and queer people, or just everybody that falls under the queer umbrella, but mostly we're talking about trans people today. The amount of people who support people having the right to do what they need to do with their body, to have the equal rights and whatever, is bigger now than it's ever been.
Ever.
Which I think is why the right is so loud about it, because they're losing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're losing, and they're shouting louder, they're
Right.
making more trouble, they're causing more waves, because they are losing.
Well, and I think we talked about this before. After the conservatives lost the battle against gay marriage, and gay marriage was passed
Yes.
as like federally, it was like they threw everything they had against the wall and was like, what sticks? You know, and trans issues, it's such a marginalized community. Trans people, there's so few comparatively to everybody else that like, it's so insane to me that people focus on this. But it was what they had. It's what they could bolster. It's what they could get their ignorant base to fucking follow.
Right.
And that is the most tragic part, is like conservatives and Republicans take their constituents for fools every fucking time they do anything.
Well, and then they prove it to be real when they just buy whatever shit they're peddling.
Well, and that just proves, I mean, I think literally the Donald Trump administration, that era of Donald Trump has really shown you that a lot of Americans are just stupid. There's people still who support Donald Trump after being indicted how many times?
3 times so
right.
far.
After being impeached, after lying,
Twice.
after doing all of these fucking things that are horrific things, and they're still like, no, or still believe he's the president. It's just like, you're in so much
Believe
denial.
he was sent by God.
Right. Like, you're in so much fucking... This isn't like the trials of Moses, bitch. Like, it's Donald Trump who's a horrible human being. And you just look dumb as fuck to keep following the same ignorance continually. It doesn't make any sense.
One of my friends the other day was at a pool.
Okay.
And just trying to get her son on, get her swim on, whatever. And this woman who sat down, or got in the pool next to her, because she was in the water at that point, started talking Trump to her. And she just said, you know what? Nope.
Yeah.
She said, you and I are very, our opinions are very different.
We're not aligned.
She said it very respectfully, whatever. And then the woman's response was, oh, you don't believe in God?
Oh,
What
fuck
the
that guy.
fuck does that have to do with Trump?
Yeah.
I am politically different from you, so I don't believe in God? And it's like, that's the kind of argument that these people come up with. It's like, what?
Yeah,
How does that make sense in this conversation?
It's like people are creating like an equivalency where there is none. And that's how they do it though, right? They create, it's either you support Trump or you don't believe in God. It's not like
you're a bad human being.
And they're equating those things, but it's a false equivalency.
Yeah.
Because those aren't even in the same realm. Those aren't even on the same spectrum. Like, it's either you support Trump or you don't, right? That's the spectrum.
Right.
Not you support Trump or you don't believe in God. And so it's such a leap. But it's
you support Trump or you're anti-American.
Right. It's so weird it's kind of scary actually to think about the number of dumb Americans there are, and the fact that we as a nation don't have like socialized schooling is crazy. Like, you just taxing and harming your own people. Like, let me tell you something, this whole thing about aliens existing, if aliens came to planet Earth, you know what's going to happen first is Americans are going to band together to fight off the aliens or whatever, you know? But the moment aliens leave, then it's back to being like, you're queer, you're black, you're of color, whatever. But like, it's just bonkers to me. So you just want to have a bunch of ignorant fucking people, and the government does. The people in power want you to be stupid.
I watched a video this morning, and I think Mike Pence is also a piece of garbage. But this Trump supporting woman said to Mike Pence, "It's your fault that Joe Biden's president, because had you not given him the vote," and Pence said to her, "If you read the Constitution." I was doing my job. I didn't have an option. I, just to follow the Constitution, had to confirm that he was indeed the president. That's all.
Yeah.
I couldn't say no. I could, but then I just look stupid and someone else would have to take over my job.
Yeah.
He's like, but that was all. And he said, and I encourage you to go read the Constitution so you know that what you've heard from Trump is nonsense.
Yeah.
I was doing my constitutional duty as vice president.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's just these people going, well, I heard...
Well, you know what I heard?
I heard you can run your car on potatoes. I mean, really.
If only.
You can say anything and someone's going to believe you.
Yeah.
And it's just ridiculous.
Well, and that's the problem now with like the 24-hour news cycle. There's always something new. So things that are actually important, that actually matter, are on the news and then off the news within an hour. And the things that don't deserve any sort of time or spotlight get too much of it. And it's just a lot.
But if you want to talk about some news that people should be talking about, is the fact that of how many trans women are killed every year.
Oh. Yeah.
And that's not getting any kind of press.
Right.
I mean, you can dig for it and find it somewhere. But last year, like 30 trans women, almost all women of color, were murdered.
Yep.
And where's the outcry for that?
Girl.
Where's the justice for that? Where are these people being arrested for that? It's not happening.
Well, and that's the craziest thing to me, is that there's a lot... I know we're talking about trans people, and the number sometimes gets so high in a year that trans women are murdered that it's astronomical. And it's rarely trans men. Not saying that they should be murdered, but you know what I mean.
Right.
Like, it is rarely them.
And it's rarely white trans. It's usually trans women of color.
Yes. But, thinking about all the other communities that have women who are getting kidnapped or raped or abused, the Murdered and Missing Indigenous Women's Act, or Coalition, is about missing women, girls, and Two-Spirit people from indigenous tribes, because they go missing at an exorbitant rate and no one goes looking for them. And there's hundreds nationwide. It's fucking insane.
And where do you hear about that?
Nowhere. Right? No, only near or close to populations of indigenous people do you ever hear about it. But that's these groups of people who are already disenfranchised, already marginalized people, and so it's just like a disgusting. It's just gross. It's just really gross. But then people want to believe shit like Trump is appointed by God. Like, there's actual real things you could care about, but you care about this orange man with a bad toupee. Like, I don't get it, girl.
No. Mm-mm. I don't understand that at all, and I never will.
No.
That's just, to me,
I remember 2015. This is like a Facebook memory, but I remember it popped up, and it was when Trump was actually running, and I said, wait, people actually support him? Because I just thought we were laughing at his tan and his toupee. Because I didn't realize that he actually had a base. And it was weird as fuck to me when I was like, wait. He's actually running for president? I thought this was a big LOL, like when Roseanne Barr ran for president and got like 1% of the votes.
Well, and for me, the parts that shock me are him, it's so easy to find. There's a video of him being on a talk show where he said, if I were ever going to run for president, I'd do it as a Republican because they're stupid and they won't elect me.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And that's easily accessible.
Easily.
There's the what is it? Is it Extra? Whatever, where the video of him saying he'll grab a woman by the pussy.
Uh-huh.
And that he doesn't even care. He'll just go up to some woman and grab her or kiss her or do whatever because he can, because he's a celebrity. He's famous.
Ugh.
He can do what he wants. How is that Christian behavior? There's the audio clip of him saying, I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and murder someone. I could shoot someone, is what he said, and I would still be elected. Mm-hmm. All of those things are actual things that he did and said, and people are like, well, that was... Oh, he's changed. Oh, whatever.
Oh, he's so different.
One of my aunts
Aunt Jo.
When one of my cousins was saying, how can you vote for this man, you who claim to be this good Christian woman, when he talks very publicly about grabbing women by the pussy? Mm-hmm. And she was like, well, I have to vote my conscience, and he's the only one who's against abortion.
So you're a single issue voter.
Yes, absolutely.
Love that.
It was like, I don't care that he's a horrible human being, that he knows nothing about government, but yeah, he's gonna ban abortion. It's like, okay.
And that's so funny to me. People are dumb. Because I just want you to know, when you make things illegal, that doesn't stop them from happening.
No.
Right? If you
It stops them from happening safely.
Yeah. So we ban abortion, guess what? Women are still going to try and terminate that pregnancy. Falling down the stairs, getting hit, you know what I mean? Wire hanger. There's a reason that is like the traditional icon when people think of like back alley abortions as a wire hanger.
Yeah.
Because it was a thing. People are going to like take drugs or poisons to try and kill the baby. So you will never ever make abortion go away. You'll just criminalize it for the people who need to have abortions. And the same thing for like trans care. You may not want to fund or give a shit about trans people, then don't. But you trying to take away rights isn't going to stop them from existing. It's not going to stop them from transitioning.
No.
It's not going to... Like, before there were rights for trans people, guess what? They still figured out how to have surgery, how to change their information, how to be on hormones. So, like, you're just...
They just went elsewhere.
Well, and that's the thing.
Or they bought hormones on the black market.
Yeah. And that's the weird thing to me about American government and the politics, is that was such like a dark time for anyone who wasn't a white man, right? And we've made progress, slow but surely. We've made a bunch of progress, right? Gay marriage is a thing, and black people can vote, and they have rights, and like whatever. Granted, there's still a lot of marginalization, but that it seems to be in this era of politics, conservatives are just trying to be like, nope, like black lives don't matter, and gay marriage is illegal, and trans people shouldn't exist, or whatever. Trying to like push it back, but it will never be pushed back. Like it will briefly, but progress evidently will always win.
Yeah. Things
that will get better, it'll always win. We'll go through dark periods, but progress will always happen. And so fighting against that is like fighting against the current, bitch. Fighting against a river in the direction it's going. Good luck.
If you really want to see, proof of that, just go into your archives and look at the photos of the people standing and screaming at the black children going into schools when they're desegregated.
Yeah.
Look at those people and see how stupid they look and how horrible and how they're definitely on the wrong side of history.
And how some of them are still alive.
Some of them are still alive. Because that wasn't that long ago.
No.
Well, Miss Ruby Bridges is not that old. She's in her late 60s, I think.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, she's not very old. I mean, she's still around. And she was 6. And people were...
yelling.
She had death threats.
Yeah.
She was 6.
A 6-year-old little girl. I know.
So, yeah. So, you certainly can fight against progress. You certainly can fight against things moving to where they definitely should.
Yeah.
But you're going to look foolish. You're going to definitely come down on the wrong side of history. And if you're all right with that, cool beans.
And it's a losing battle anyway,
Absolutely. And I'm going to say one more thing about the whole detransitioning thing before we, go somewhere else. But one of my friends, my friend Alicia, Auntie Alicia, one of her friends decided to DM me on the Facebook, right? Mm-hmm. And she was like, can I ask you some questions? And I was like, sure, because I don't know. I'm a hairdresser by trade. I assume she's going to ask me about hair stuff.
Yeah.
Nope. She wanted to ask me questions about trans people. I'm like, why on earth are you coming to me? I'm not a doctor.
Yeah.
I'm not, whatever. And she's like, well, I just heard that so many people who think they're transgender detransition. And I was like, yeah, that's not true. Mm-mm. That's just a Republican talking point. And she was like, well, but I've read, and I go, where did you read it?
Breitbart News.
Right. And it's like, that virtually never happens. What is more likely is the people who are experimenting with their identity. Mm-hmm. Because you will see people who are like, I am they, them.
Yeah.
I am non-binary. And then maybe a little bit down the road, they're like, yeah, I'm not non-binary. I am this trans. Binary. I'm trans.
Yeah.
But it's like trying on different shoes and going, well, this one kind of fits. Yep. This shoe, I can wear it. It's not really comfortable. It's not perfect. Mm-hmm. But I'll wear this shoe for, oh, no, you know what? This shoe kind of doesn't work for me. And then finding the right shoe that fits. And it is as simple as that most of the time. It is. And I've known people who are like, yeah, I've known, specifically, I'm going to talk about one person who was lesbian. Mm-hmm. And then was like, you know what? I am a boy. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay. And so then everybody started referring to her as he and whatever. And then sometime down the road was like, you know what, this isn't right for me. But there was no surgery, there was no cutting off of the breast, as people like to say, there was no mutilation. It was all a mental transition.
Well, yeah, but let's talk about something. The difference between sex and gender. Sex is how you're born. You're assigned male at birth, you're assigned female at birth, you're assigned intersex, whatever that is.
Yes.
And I want you to know there's more intersex people in the United States than there are trans people. Figure that out.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
I did not know that.
Yeah. Gender is a construct. And what that means is human beings over the years have created symbols and language and ideas of what it means to be a woman and what it means to be a man. Gender has nothing to do with your chromosomes, with your level of hormones, with whether you've had surgery, whether you have a penis or a vagina, whether you have boobs or not. That's sex. Gender is your gender identity, your gender expression. And so you can be assigned male at birth and then transition, and maybe you don't have any surgery, and maybe you just live your life as a woman. That's still your gender. So that's when it gets touchy at doctor's offices, when it says sex or gender, right? Sometimes they're different categories. In all of academia, in all of research, sex and gender are completely separate categories.
Right.
They are, they interact, but they're not the same thing. People use them like they're interchangeable. But if you are born assigned female at birth and you live as a man, then you're seen as a man. You're not seen as male. You're not seen as born male, but seen as a man.
Yes.
And maybe sometimes you are. If people don't know your business and know that you're trans, then you will be seen as male or female, whatever. But you're seen as a man or a woman. And all gender has to do with is if you're masculine or feminine. And that is it, and how you're perceived. So it has to do with the ideas that humans have collectively thought about. Obviously, this wasn't on a conscious level.
Right.
But thought about in the things we identify with femininity. And that often, we just identify that with being a woman. That doesn't mean you're being female. And that's the fucking irritating thing about the whole argument of well, I'm a real woman and I don't want to be called cisgender. No, first of all, being a woman isn't something you achieved. Being a woman is something that was prescribed to you, right? It's an ascribed identity. You didn't, as someone who was assigned female at birth, you didn't wake up and say, I'm a woman. Society gave that to you.
Right.
Trans people, on the other hand, who do transition, that is an achieved status to them. So, but the idea of being I'm a woman and that has all this meaning. Yes, it does have meaning, but for you to be that fucking ignorant about it and act like your only identifier is the fact that you can give birth, you need to get some hobbies or think of yourself in a better light. Because if the only factor you're looking at for being a woman is that you have a vagina and you can give birth, then being womanhood is stunted and immature.
Right. Well, because then at that very thing, you're saying that women who can't give birth are less of a woman.
Exactly.
Women who maybe are intersexed are less of a woman.
There are plenty of women who can't give birth for many
multiple reasons.
Yeah,
yes.
Right?
Right. And so somehow they're less of a woman?
Now they're less, right. So you're quantifying, you're qualifying what it means to be a woman based on what your body can do.
Right.
But not even all cisgendered women look like you, can perform the same things, can have children, have a period, X, Y, Z. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So just the whole argument about, mutilation, or this is what's happening in people's bodies, or if you're a woman, then you're born female. None of that's true. And again, this is not hard to look up. And if you look, what's the difference between sex and gender? Google that. It'll give you easy, elementary explanation. So before people want to speak on shit that they think that they should have an opinion on, have your opinion, but be ready for it to be fucking stupid.
Right.
Because you are uneducated.
Well, the other thing they need to know is that there's a difference between gender, sex, and sexuality.
Oh.
Because people are so you were born a male, and now you identify as female, but you're dating a female. Why didn't you just stay a male? That doesn't make any sense. Well, because clearly that person felt female and lesbian.
Right. Yeah.
And
well, that's the thing,
that's
too.
That's just the whole thing. Now, would it have been easier in the eyes of the person looking at this whole situation to stay male and get women?
Yeah.
Yes, probably.
Yeah.
But would they have ever felt like a whole human being?
No. Right.
And the other thing, just so you know, people, is trans people who are not allowed to do what they need to do to be themselves are much more likely to commit suicide.
Oh.
Or to at least attempt suicide.
Yeah. They will have suicidal ideation. They will attempt it, and often they will succeed. And you're not doing any good. I don't know what good you could think you could possibly be doing. And the fact, it just feels like to me the conversation regarding trans people and whether or not, trans kids should be thought of as being trans, or trans people are even human. It just stems from this idea that being trans is so new. And it's not new. And I know we've talked about it a million times, but like all over the entire world, through antiquity, and most cultures, there's a third gender. Yes, the term transgender, of course, wasn't a thing. Right. But the word homosexual wasn't a thing until like the late 1800s. So like when people talk about, this is again deviation, but tangents are topics. The Bible and how it's like, oh, Jesus preaches about homosexuality. Well, homosexuality, that word's probably not in the Bible. You want to know why? Because it wasn't fucking invented yet.
And Jesus doesn't mention a word about it.
Yeah. And so, like, my point is it just is, you're thinking about it like it's new. It may be new to you because you've lived under a rock, you fucking conservative evangelical, but it's not new, ever.
Right. Or you were raised in such a way that you were told your entire life that anything that deviates from your little Christian values are wrong.
Yeah.
And you never saw your way through that. You never decided to go past that. You never decided to question anything. That's on you.
Right.
I'm sorry, but if you decided whatever you were taught was just good enough and you were never going to question anything, then that's on you. And, that's your problem.
And I feel like that for about everything. If you're an adult and you never questioned things in your life or what you were taught or how things worked, if you never did it, then you're dumb. Because you should. Because the world, what people tell you and how the world actually is, those are very different things.
Oh, absolutely.
They're not the same. And so if you just take people's word for how it is, and I, on a very like basic level, that was always my perspective when I first moved to San Francisco. I was a young adult, and I remember people being like, "Oh, I don't like that person because X, Y, and Z," and I'd be all, "Well, let me find out." You know what I mean? Like, let me make my own opinion about this person. I'm not going to take what you say because you say, I don't care. But I feel like people should do that with everything.
I feel like, though, I think that's the simplest way to put it, is people say, well, I don't like Annika because she is, this way or that way or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then the people who just are supporting whoever said that just blindly follow along. Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, then A, you're stupid, and B, you have zero curiosity about life. You don't want to find out the real thing.
Right.
Maybe Annika is all those things that you just said about her, but maybe you're like, oh, but that's what makes her cool and edgy and whatever. Mm-hmm. Or none of those things are true.
Yeah.
That's your perception, and that when it comes back to that whole subjective truth.
Yeah.
Is Annika a bitch? Yes.
Yeah.
But is she the kind of bitch that I want to hang out with?
Yeah.
Yes.
But and I say regularly that you will always be the villain in somebody's story. Not everyone's...
Just never your own.
Right. But no one's ever going to think... Not every single person you meet is going to think you're great and amazing. Some people are going to hate you. You're going to have done dirty on some people, or they perceived it that way.
Yeah.
But you're not always going to be what you think you are to other people. You will
That's the tricky part.
Yeah.
Because you think that you're going through life, putting out this image, doing this thing, doing good things, doing whatever things, doing bad things, but you think that you're one way.
Yeah.
And it isn't until you start hearing other people going, well, maybe, but she did this to me, or she said this about me, or she whatever. And it's like, oh, it's your reality.
Yeah.
Not the reality.
Well, and that's why people just have to like sit.
But, perfect example, I had a friend who at one point stopped talking to me. Mm-hmm. And I was like, what? Why are you mad? And they just never told me why they were mad. Just stopped talking to me. Yeah. I was like, what? Oh, okay. Well, I guess. And then, because I'm also not going to lose sleep over it. Huh. At the beginning, I will be like, I don't know what happened. Are you going to not? And if you're not willing to participate, then I can't. I don't have time for it. Mm-hmm. I swear to God, it went on for like a couple of years until finally one day she said to me, oh, she just started talking to me out of the blue. And I was like, why are you talking to me? Oh, because I found out what I heard about you wasn't true. You couldn't have just come to me initially. You heard it from someone who was a known liar. But you chose to believe that instead of ever asking any questions.
Yeah.
Because I tell you what, if I'm going to talk shit about you, I will certainly own it. Even if it comes out I look like a bitch or whatever. It's like, well, I did say that. Or whatever. It's like, yeah. Yeah, I don't like you. Or yeah, I did say you're lazy or whatever. Who knows, whatever thing. You know, this particular person I could have said any number of things about, but I said them all to her as well. But, you know, it's just, that's crazy to me. Yeah. It's crazy to me that you will just accept one person's word for anything. Yeah. So do some homework. Yeah. Look beyond the end of your nose for these things that are happening. Look to realism. And, like one of the news sources I know that is supposed to be more accurate and less leaning one side or the other is the BBC World News. Okay. But I mean, that's not going to give you, like, stats of all the, like, trans women or indigenous women killed in America, but you can find those things. You can look for those things, and if you're looking for those specific kind of things or what's happening in the world, look beyond Breitbart
And here's a good thing. People on it, I'm about to graduate, but I've read a lot of academic journals. A lot of them are dry and boring. A lot of them are really hard for the layperson to understand. They're hard for me to fucking understand, right? But there's a lot of good information in places where they get their research. So like the Pew Research Center, you can literally Google Pew and it will PEW. And there's studies about everything. They have simplified versions of it. Like on Scopes, you can find out if news is true or not, you know? Right. And so there are many tools that are free and at your disposal to figure out if what you're hearing is true, valid, if it's accurate, Yeah,
so if you're not even bothering to try to find then you're just lazy.
Well, and I want to equate this to something. I had a friend who was Christian and was going to go study the Bible. Cool beans. But they were going to also study the history of Christianity and the history of the Bible. Their church elder said, yeah, that's great. Go study the Bible. Go, whatever, learn in our Lord or whatever. But don't read the history too much. Because if you study too much of the history of Christianity, you'll start to question too much, and you'll see that Christians didn't always do right. They weren't always making the great choices. And so that's the thing, is your church elder is telling you to not study too much of their religion, the religion you're a part of, because you'll start to question too much. And I think that everyone should take that as you should study too much. You should question everything. Right. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Well, and that's kind of been one of those things that's been around for as long as I can remember. People just saying, the people who really who care about truth, saying question everything. Question everything you're told. Mm-hmm. Because if it's something you were told by your parents, well, that was their opinion probably. If it's something you were told by your church, it was their ideology. If it was something you were told by your school, it was their curriculum. It's not necessarily factual.
No.
It is what it is. You have to do some work on your own.
Yep.
So, if there are things you want to know about the world, do some homework.
Well, and I would much rather know the truth about everything than follow an artist that's problematic, than patronize a company that's problematic, than do any of these things. I would much rather just know the truth, no matter... and they say, like, ignorance is bliss. Yes, because I feel like I was less depressed as a person before I knew more truth about the world.
Absolutely. Absolutely, because if you can go through life thinking everything's peachy and dandy and wonderful and stuff, you're not going to have the issues you have knowing the world's on fire, has been forever, will continue to be.
Yeah, it just gets darker and darker and darker. So it's not always going to be comfortable, but this is where we go back to, just sit in your discomfort and try and figure out why you're uncomfortable. Why do these things, why does the truth of something make you uncomfortable?
And then let it, make you grow as a person.
Yeah.
Because the only thing you are going to do from all the extra knowledge is you will grow as a person.
Mm-hmm. Whether you want to or not, bitch.
Right.
You can't help it. No. You can't help, when you learn something, you can't help but changing thinking. Whether that's for the better or worse, you can't help it. No. You learned other things.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And for being a day where we actually didn't really have anything prepared or planned or talked about, we certainly have filled that hour. And now we...
and it was solid. I feel like it wasn't fluffy. It was...
No. I mean, maybe me talking about Greenland at the beginning, a little fluffy, but I also want people to do a little research on that because it is awesome and it's very interesting and intriguing. And it's a culture, literally, that I knew nothing about.
Right. I know, right?
I didn't even know people lived there, honestly. That is the truth.
Because you're like, it's cold, it's icy, why would we be there?
Yeah. Well, because when again, back to the old Iceland is green and Greenland is ice. Well, why are you going to live somewhere that's ice? Well, it's also beautiful.
Yeah, I bet.
And the culture is really amazing.
I mean...
And the culture is way older than our culture.
Oh, yeah, so, girl, of course.
Yeah, learn something.
And with my obsession with Iceland, I can only imagine my obsession with Greenland will probably grow. And has an indigenous population. They have mythology and folklore. I'll go there. Yeah. I'll see what it's about. And I'll say, come here. All we eat is seafood. You'll love it. I know.
And we're surrounded by water.
I know.
All right. Well, that's going to be our thing for today, our show, our time. Mm-hmm. So if you have questions, comments, queries, or concerns, you might have those. It would seem as though at gmail.com. I did find out that one of the podcasting apps that I've used is going away from podcasting. In fact, I think it's gone now, which is Stitcher.
Okay.
So it's gone. But I've been listening to my podcasts on iHeartRadio. Okay. But you can find them at most podcasts.
Apple Music, Spotify, which is what I have.
Yeah. So like, share, subscribe, and come back every week because we're going to be here. And, we are halfway through season 2. So
season 2, girl. Look at us. Killing it. Loving it.
Yeah. All right. And now we must go back to our regularly scheduled lives. So we'll talk to you next week.
Bye.
It would seem as though